Paula, is there a brand that you have met at FinCon that has been a successful, really wonderful partnership? And if people are looking for those brands, what are just some of the things that you think would be an ideal relationship?
In 2012, I did actually, at that FinCon, I made 2 relationships with 2 brands. One of them paid me $2,000 a month. Put me on a retainer for $2,000 a month. The other put me on a retainer for $3,000 a month. Both of them hired me as a freelancer. At the time, I had almost no audience. I was a brand new blogger, so I didn't have a platform that I could sell. Not that I would, but I didn't have. I just wasn't a name that anybody knew. But I was a good writer, if I do say so myself.
I mean, here you are now.
So they put me on retainer. One of them put me on for $2,000 a month. The other put me on for $3,000 a month, which means that between those 2 companies, that was worth $60,000 a year. So going to that one FinCon was worth $60,000 a year.
Yeah, and it's a great opportunity. It's a great place to be able to talk to people, to meet brands. And there's a lot of people on the brand side, and then there's a lot of people on the other side, the freelancers or the brand ambassadors or whatever that is. What would you like brands to know about attendees?
If you're a freelancer and a brand is hiring you to write for them or to manage their editorial calendar or to manage their social media, then it's akin to an employee-employer relationship in a freelance context, right? You are providing a service and they are compensating you for that service. So there's that's a fairly simple transaction, a fantastic opportunity. Where things change is when brands want access to a platform that you've built. Because that platform is an audience of real human beings who know you and like you and trust you. And to offer access to that audience is the most sacred, most intimate thing that you could possibly do. I think a lot of brands don't really have a respect for what that means. You know, when you have spent the last 8 years of your life trading everything you have, including your personal relationships, so that you can build this relationship with an audience, that relationship between the blogger and the audience or the podcaster and the audience is a sacred, intimate relationship. And that is not something that you can just readily trade for. It's just,
right.
You know, I hope that brands understand that.
Do you find yourself working in that capacity with brands? Or is it something that you set boundaries around? And it could be for a blog, it could be for a podcast, it could be for whatever. So what does that look like for you? And what are the checklists that brand has to pass before they're allowed into that sanctimonious place?
So I am very, very uncomfortable. I do not accept sponsored posts. And the reason for that is because when I send out an email, there are more than 50,000 people who have agreed to give me their email address. And about 40% of them open those emails and read what I have to say. And I'm not going to trade that trust that I've established with them. It's not worth a few $1,000s.
Yeah.
Why would I slay the goose that laid the golden egg? So I don't accept sponsored posts for that reason. Now with podcast, it's different because with a podcast, you can produce an episode and then cut in for a commercial break. And because it's a broadcast medium, the idea of a commercial break in the middle of a broadcast medium is something that is more familiar to people. And it's not like the whole episode was sponsored. This is just a commercial break.
Right.
So in that capacity, I do work with brands and I do accept sponsorships. But I think the major difference between those 2 opportunities is the impact that it has on the audience. Because in all transactions, my audience comes first. And I don't care if you're offering me $20,000, $30,000, $40,000. If my audience is going to suffer, it's not worth it.
Yeah.
It's not worth it. This is my brand. This is my life. This is the next 40 years of what I have to build.
Right.
$40,000 is nothing. I don't mean to sound like a out of touch,
No,
But it's nothing in the grand scheme of things.
and what it comes down to and what I'm hearing is that you want to protect your brand so much that you would never sell something to them that you didn't believe in, that you didn't think was good for them, or that didn't pass that checklist that it is that you would do yourself or that you would recommend to someone.
Yes, and it's beyond just that.
Yeah.
If it doesn't create good content, then I'm not going to do it. And that's why taking a sponsorship on a podcast where this is a 60-second commercial break, that's fine because that doesn't affect the content. But if we're talking about a sponsored post, that's an entire piece of content. I'm not going to send that out.
Right. Well, and with that said, when you go to FinCon, do you still connect with brands? And if so, why are you interested in connecting with those brands there?
So 5 or 6 years ago, when I predominantly made money as a freelancer, at that time, I was very interested in connecting with brands so that I could trade my time and skill set to work for them as a freelancer. These days, I don't really care, to be honest. And it's because of the fact that I have a direct relationship with my audience, I can create my own products and services. I can create a course, and that's much more authentic to me and to who I am than selling, building this platform and then selling access to that platform to another brand.
Right.
The one exception, as I've said, is podcast sponsorships.
Yeah.
But those, not to sound highfalutin, but those come so readily that I don't really have a need to try to seek them out.
Yeah. I want to go on this a little bit. When it comes to podcasting, how soon do you think is appropriate or possible to start making those relationships, to start building that content within your podcast? Because I know some people say, oh, you have to have this many listeners before you should even start thinking about that. Or is it something that, even with smaller numbers, you say, look, we have a great audience, we make these connections, and we would, passing all of those tests, we wouldn't recommend this. When is a good time to start?
So I would say that if you have at least 5,000 to 10,000 downloads per episode, that would be a good time to start looking for outside sponsors. If you have fewer than 5,000 to 10,000 downloads per episode, then what I would recommend is to sell your own products or services to your audience, because you don't necessarily have access to a mass market, which another brand would be interested in, but you have something even more valuable, which is that the people who are listening to you, they like you, they trust you. I mean, that's why they're listening to you, even though they know that you're a smaller podcast, they still listen to you because they like what you have to say. And so if you can offer coaching services to them, for example, one-on-one coaching, which granted, that's not infinitely scalable. Ultimately, there's a cap to how much you can offer. But in the beginning, and when you are first getting started and you're growing, that's a great way to be able to make money in a way that is more authentic to you and doesn't require a mass audience, because really what you're trading on is the trust that you have with the few people who do listen to you.
Well, and something that you mentioned very briefly, and I want to talk to you, go maybe a little bit more in depth with this, is your audience knows that about you, right? So they know the relationship that they have with you. And it reminds me of a big idea that you shared in 2017 called radical authenticity. Do you remember that?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. So let's talk about this just a little bit, the radical authenticity, because I think that it comes very into play when we're talking about brands. It comes into play when it's talking about, those gates that have to pass in order to get to your audience, because you are so radically authentic that you wouldn't want to dupe or to bamboozle your audience, right?
Right. But yet the thing is, if I were to publish a blog post that said, hey, I really love XYZ soap, everybody can see through that.
Yeah.
Right? And to a certain extent, like, that would almost be insulting my audience. Like, clearly they're going to see through that. Why would I do that? Particularly knowing that that comes at the expense of me saying, hey, audience, I've created this course, or I'm offering this one-on-one coaching, or I've created this free 30-day online challenge that has some affiliate links built into it, right? Those are all ways that you can monetize your brand and make money for the hard work that you're doing, as you deserve to do, without, well, put it this way. The litmus test is, if you wouldn't think of it naturally, then why would you put it out there?
Yeah.
You know, and again, there are some exceptions that I make, like the commercial break exception.
Right.
Where it's obviously you're cutting in for a commercial break. Okay, that's fine. If you have an Instagram channel and you put up one post that is a sponsored post, that's the equivalent of a commercial break. That's fine. So a very concentrated commercial break that has strict boundaries around it, I don't have any objection to that because people are familiar with the commercial break model.
Yeah.
But if it goes outside of the commercial break model, then I think that to an extent is slaying the goose that lays the golden egg.
Right.
What you can do, and what I did when I was a beginner blogger, is I traded my time for money. And so I earned money as a freelancer while simultaneously building my platform. And the platform I knew would be the thing that is an asset, the thing that is scalable and long-term.
Right.
And trading my time for money as a freelancer, working with brands. And remember, those 2 brand partnerships that I made at FinCon,
Right.
just those 2 clients alone were worth $60,000 a year. But that was in the capacity of a freelancer. And when you work as a freelancer, then you are not exchanging audience trust or audience access for it. So there's no conflict of interest.
Was there a point for you that you were saying, okay, I'm making this money freelancing, but I'm going to transition out of that in order to do it this way? And what are some of the things that were key markers for you or milestones?
Okay, so the big thing, actually, this came out of a conversation that I had at FinCon.
Yeah.
And this came with another attendee at FinCon. And he and I were talking in the hallway during the conference, and I was complaining about the fact that I was spending so much time serving my clients that I had all these ideas for ways that I could grow my blog. And I think at the time I hadn't started a podcast yet, or I had just started it. So I had all these ideas for ways that I could grow the blog and the podcast, but I didn't have enough time to implement those ideas because I was spending so much time freelancing. And I was beating myself up because I kept thinking, well, if only I were more productive, and if only I were more efficient, I could do them both. I wouldn't have to drop either one. And I said that to him, and he just looked at me, and he was quiet for a moment, and then he said, how long have you been telling yourself that? And that hit me like a ton of bricks. Like, the moment he said that, I knew that this, if only I were more efficient, is not going to cut it. And so at that moment, I knew if I really wanted the time to be able to focus on my blog and podcast, I'd have to drop the freelance clients.
Was that hard? Was
Yeah,
that hard to do?
It was terrifying. It was terrifying because it took me so long to build the freelance business, right?
Yeah.
When I started freelancing, initially I had no clients and no money, and my first client paid me $800 a month, and I was so excited. You would have thought that it was $8 million. Like, that was such a big deal.
Yeah.
And so to go from an aspiring freelancer to a kind of sort of scraping it together freelancer to okay, I'm doing better freelancer, and then eventually to a 6-figure freelancer, like making that transition through my freelance years was really difficult and stressful. And so when I finally achieved what I had always dreamed of achieving, to then cut that.
Yeah.
Wow, yeah.
Just turn off that tap. Yeah.
Yeah, that was really hard. And it required faith and confidence that this other thing that wasn't really making good money at the time, but that was more scalable and more of a long-term asset, and plus just more in line with my passion, would be the right thing to do. So, yeah, like, you're building a freelance career and it works out, and then you kill this thing that you've spent years building so that you can build something else. It's really hard.
Was there anything you had to do to prepare for that? Like just within, I mean, or even just financially, that you had to, you just turned off the tap to your main income.
Yeah.
What did you do? And because you're like, I know this can be a thing. I know this can be something amazing. And I'm taking that leap. I'm taking that step towards this thing that I really believe in. Did you have to prepare for that?
A big part of what I did was I spent a lot of time looking at examples of other people who had blogs or podcasts, who had brands, who were doing the thing that I wanted to be doing, and I just looked at example after example. And I looked outside of the personal finance and entrepreneurship space because this space can be, if you only look in this space, it can be an echo chamber. So I looked at people with yoga blogs or with vegetarian blogs. I looked outside of these verticals so that I could see all of these examples of other people who were doing it. And that helped reassure me that if they could do it, I could too.
Yeah. I love that because I think that there are people in this community who are there.
Yeah.
They're there and they're looking for that boost or that little spurt of hope and saying that it can happen. You can do it too. And I think it's extremely relevant because there have been people who have built something really awesome, but they're looking
for something
else.
And it's so hard when you've taken the time to build something incredible and you have what other people would consider a dream job. Like when I was a freelancer making 6 figures as a freelance writer, so many people, including my former self, would have considered that a dream job. And so to kill your dream job so that you can then grow this other business, that's really difficult. And one of the other things that helps, there are always going to be naysayers, right? So you kill the dream job so that you can grow this other business, and then you get some grumpy person who leaves a comment that's like, wah, 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 I can't believe you're making money through your affiliate link, blah, blah, blah,
Yeah.
And they don't know what you've gone through. They don't know the sacrifices that you've made. They don't know how hard you work. They're just some dog that's barking in the night, right? And you can't listen to dogs barking as you pass by.
Right. And ultimately, I mean, going back to what we started talking about was, that even those affiliate links, even those ways that you have tested those, you have put those through the ringer when it comes to this audience that you have developed, and you have this relationship and this sacred bond. And when you know that, and when you're confident and sure of that in yourself, you can say to that person, I mean, even to yourself, you don't even, don't feed the trolls, but you can say, I know who I am. I know what I've done. I know why I'm doing this and the way that I do it. And I'm confident in that.
Exactly. The thing that I always tell myself, like a mantra, is if I am operating inside of my own integrity and you don't like it, that's not my problem.
I so appreciate you just coming in here and talking about this because it's so important. It's so wonderful about just how you've gotten to where you are. And thank you so much. Where can people find you on the internet?
On the internet.
Yes.
My blog is affordanything.com. I have a free ebook. It's called Escape, about escaping the 9 to 5. And you can download it for free at affordanything.com/escape.
Awesome. Thanks so much, Paula.
Thank you.